from a long-term standpoint, I don't see online commerce going anywhere. And
No.
it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. We were talking about sugar, right? I think people get addicted to patterns and behaviors.
Yes.
And the behavioral pattern of online shopping and e-commerce is only going to further strengthen that consumer buying power. And then if you drop rates on top of that with the pent-up demand of housing, the housing market, you're going to see this mass migration of housing growth, occur again. And that's going to be another spike in the industry. And I think the storage industry is going to benefit from that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's, the pent-up demand, and this is something you see in every different cycle, that there's pent-up demand, but more importantly, the supply level. So then you have this supply is not reaching, it's not hitting, it's not doing what it's supposed to do. And that exasperates and it resets at a new nominal. So like we have lower expectations, there's lower supply, you have hurdles that stop supply, that contracts those supply even more. And then that's coming off a high, right? It just swings that other way. And so that creates that pent-up demand and it rebuilds upon itself. And this is something that real estate cycles, right? It goes through it. And the idea that people are like, oh, it'll never go, it's, well, it always does. It's just part of it. If there's a utilization is there, the amount of utilization is all we're talking about. So the utilization is there. What are the things that impact utilization for customers? For self-storage, the things that impact utilization is the actual moving. So demand drives from people needing space for shorter periods of time, and they're normally in transition, or they need to utilize a lower cost space. So we see more businesses, right? All that kind of stuff doing it because it is an economical issue, or it's purely driven because of ability. These things are the drivers. Well, the overall moving and transition one, that's where the demand's been hit the most because of high interest rates. So that is that input to overall utilization of the asset, which has contracted it, which means demand has gone down. But the question becomes, is it going to go back to what I air quotations normal, and not talking about COVID, or is it going to, continue down like people are like, oh, self-storage is dead. I'm like, all you're doing is looking at short-term things to try to make long-term outlooks, and you're looking at the asset's trends. You're not looking at the drivers. When you look at the drivers, not only have none of them gone away, it's very clear on what's creating lower demand. Once again, with that said, most of it has only to do with the selling or the buying of the asset, right? Our assets are all doing better. So our revenue is up, our occupancies are up. This spring was a really good spring. So even a new normal, we're probably moving more into it. And that's with one of the three legs that drive utilization being contracted really hard. So the question is, will that leg change? And the answer is yes. Obviously, the housing market will go up again. It'll also go down again. That's just a normal part. So with that said, it's obvious the utilization of our asset is still in need. It's going to be in more need. Then what are the things stopping it? Those are external factors, not internal. And when you look at the real estate cycles, that's how you can look and see where we're at, right? And so I think you're exactly right. We know what the utilization will be. We can see it. This allows us to look at different markets and say, where is the utilization contracted, but supply is contracted, right? And so we have great opportunities.
Yep.
And we're not predicting markets. We're looking at utilization like a business. So where do customers need our product and how much are they willing to pay? I'm not talking about predicting markets, right? And that those fundamental things are actually easier to see today than they were for the last 5-6 years. So you can actually make way better decisions today. Way better. People are like, it's not a good time. And I'm like, it's actually a way better time. Because I can see, we were going over that in our revenue management. We were talking about when we're like, look at the individual units and you could see this one is at 100% full. This one's at 60% full. This one's at 85 and this one's at 75, right? We had a period of time from 18 to 22. It was 100% full.
Yep.
And the only reason was because people couldn't get that unit. So they bought something they didn't really want.
Yep.
So you couldn't actually see what demand was. We couldn't actually tell what our customers really wanted or didn't want. That's really bad.
Yeah.
Right. And today we can see it. It's very clear. so we can make great decisions.
That period was caked in makeup. You couldn't get a true reflection of what the imagery looked like.
Absolutely.
I agree 100%. And because we kind of were born out of that sector, we've had to make some pivotal changes into our business philosophy. But, if you look at it from a holistic standpoint, I mean, the industry is a massive industry.
Massive, yeah.
Consumerism is not going down. I mean, no matter what, we are the largest consumer in the entire world.
Yeah.
That's not going down.
It's only gotten cheaper and easier. And that is what drives everything, even in the world economy today.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. So, you dovetail that with, like you said, the utilization and the demand. I think the other thing that we were talking about earlier this morning is new supply. And while capital and financing is certainly gotten more challenging, I get that, but there's not a lot of new supply coming on the market. And if you can balance out that equation and find capital and be able to take advantage of that lack of supply and new supply that's coming on the market, we're not talking about a 5 or 10 year period. I think in a 2 to 3 year period, you can see huge advantages from that, especially in markets if you're pinpointing the right location. My experience, or I guess what I understand storage to be before we got into it was, I don't know if it was less real estate driven and more supply and demand driven, but if you can apply the real estate components, right? Great location, good signage, good street visibility, strong traffic counts, outposition your competition, the main on main corners as much as you can. If you can target those and then you can apply the utilization and the demand scenarios to it, I think you have a recipe for success at the end of the day. And if you can do it right, buy your price right, and you can build it appropriately, you're going to see a benefit in 2 or 3 years because there's not enough supply coming on the market. When everybody's zigging, I think one of your guys is talking about, when everybody's zigging, should we be zagging?
Yeah.
And I do believe that. I never want to be one that's always following the herd. Kind of the reason why I did get into the storage business, because, in my line of work at the time, everybody's talking about shopping center acquisitions, right? Or everybody's talking about multifamily.
Yeah.
And I said, well, kind of comparing it to the retail sector. So, we have, ISS and all these different storage conventions. If anybody who's ever been to ICSC, which is International Council of Shopping Centers, which is all retail oriented out in Vegas or Chicago or New York, those are some of the largest conventions. And you go out there and there's 10,000 identical players to me.
Yes.
You go to some of the storage conventions and there's a fraction of that.
Yes.
And then you look at that number, how much can somebody build in comparison to what the demand is and how many markets are available? The competition is significantly less.
Yes.
Significantly less.
Yes.
So that's where I think I do see a lot of opportunity. Now, to get from point A to point B, right, on a ground up deal and new supply deal, it's going to take some creativity and it's going to take some diligence and working with the banks and lenders and finding the right capital partners who have that tolerance.
Yeah.
But I think the upside is tremendous.